they typically don't have a safety net. They don't even have family here. And last but not least, they don't have plan B. Like they go all in, put all their savings here, came to this country to start this company. So they really want to make this a success.
We're talking to Gülsah Wilke today. She grew up as the daughter of a Turkish guest worker in a small German town. A teacher tried to send her to Germany's lowest school track, and today she's the first female partner at VC firm DN Capital with over €1 billion under management, and makes the case that diversity isn't charity, it's a return strategy. We talk about this and the implications of AI on companies across the European continent and what decision makers in these companies can do to deploy AI successfully. We hope you enjoy this one.
The race for foundational models is more or less the ship has sailed. But I think where we do have a strong opportunity is really in vertical AI. So I have less competition and I can go fish in the very best pool of founders and invest in the next decade of unicorns while you go back into fishing in the same pool that everybody does.
The one thing Germany must fix in the next 3 years to keep its AI talent.
This is Melanie.
And this is Christian.
You're listening to Follow the Gradient, the weekly podcast with actionable insights about how to build a business while staying sane. You once said, I used to think that anyone can make it. Now, like this used to think is very powerful. It's a very powerful statement from someone who on paper did make it. So maybe at what point in your career did that belief actually break? Was there a specific moment or just from your early days on?
I always noticed that I'm different, right? By definition, I look different. I spoke another language on top. At home, we were celebrating other things than most of my class. Like we would come to school and talk about Christmas. And I would obviously know the concept of Christmas because I was born in Germany, but we would never celebrate it. So you right from the beginning knew that if you want or not, you're different. And I think if you know this straight from being a child, you develop a certain resilience and adaptability that is insane. So you can switch from one moment to other, to another language, to another mindset, to another setup. And I think this is something that still since today helps me. And in terms of everyone can make it, I always thought basically in every essay I would write, and I had French, English, and German, I would always end in each of the languages, every essay that I write with the sentence, if there's a will, there's a way. I don't know why. I always ended it up and but it was a bit my mindset. Whenever I started university and I got a full scholarship to study at EPS University, which is a private business school. And 20 years ago, it was on par with WHU. And I think it's keeping up now again. And I do remember that there I noticed there is more than just good grades, that it's also about social status, about having the right parents, having the right Patenonkel, like having the right uncle, blah, blah, blah. And that in business, there is more than just being excellent and good. Because in school, after this one thing with gymnasium, I was excelling. I skipped a class. I went from second half of 11th grade to second half of 12th grade. I was one of the best in my town and in North Rhine-Westphalia. So that was like a check the box. But then in business, I noticed there's more to it. And over time, this became more evident. I was first with IBM and McKinsey. And I would say there, it's really about up or out. You have to perform. That's about it. But then when I entered the corporate world, I noticed, hey, being the youngest, being the only woman, and being the only migrant and even Turkish in the room does not help. Because let's face the reality. If you're a Black woman or if you're a Turkish woman, you don't have the same standing as if you come from China or India, because you get a certain label. And Turkish people in Germany are not the professors. Thank God, BioNTech founders Özlem and Uğur changed it now. But before that, it were the cab drivers, the döner owners. Many of my mom's friends are cleaners and they're proud of it. But I'm just saying, it's not like your average VC investor, president. Now we have Cem Özdemir in Stuttgart as the minister and president. But so that ultimately didn't help.
And it reminds me a lot. So in my past life, I also studied sociology, and there is this wonderful theory from about the social capital, the financial capital, which we always connect to capital, but there is also the cultural capital. And
Yeah.
this is exactly where you have a lot of hurdles if you don't come from this group or this background. Now, I would really also like to know from you, like, how did you just adapt and learn all the rules, or how did you then actually get into that like space?
I think it was learning by doing, literally, and I did all the mistakes you can do. And I just want to make sure that the walls that I broke, the doors that I opened, stay open now. And that's why ultimately also we started Two Hearts, because me and my co-founders, we want to be the persons that we needed when we were younger. And we want to, now VC term, scale our experience and sharing that experience with as many people as possible, because I can only coach and mentor and support a limited number of people, maybe 5, and now not even 2 because I have too much on the plate. But with Two Hearts, we have like around 300 mentees every year since many years that we are supporting.
And maybe now let's also talk a little bit about what the data actually shows when it comes to these kind of group of people with migrant backgrounds. So the latest Migrant Founders Monitor says that 14% of German startup founders were born abroad. But among unicorn founders, that number jumps to 23%. And in the US, it's even 44%. So what does that tell you about Germany's and also broader Europe's untapped potential?
It's massive. And I always say, as I'm also a VC investor, I always say I have a very unfair complementary access to deal flow through the very own community that I started, which is Two Hearts, which is by now Europe's largest migrant founder community with almost 5,000 members across 120 nationalities in Europe, because these are exactly these kind of people who either started a company or want to start a company and who have 2 or more hearts. And some numbers even say that half of Fortune 500, so the world's most successful companies out of the US, have been founded or co-founded by immigrants. Nvidia, Qualcomm, PayPal, Apple, like Steve Jobs being an adopted Syrian child. I think it just shows that growing up as an immigrant with 2 or more hearts, 2 cultures, 2 perspectives gives you a certain level of resilience. And if this is being combined with being mocked or coming from a socially underprivileged background, it also gives you a certain adaptability and hunger and willingness to prove yourself. And these are the very same qualities you need to succeed as a founder. Most of the immigrant founders I talk to, they typically don't have vitamin B, as I like to call it. They don't have friends and family, a partner, uncle, whatsoever, a sponsor that could give them the first 100K ticket. Secondly, they typically don't have a safety net they would fall into, go back to family, etc. Most of them came here, weren't born here, they don't even have family here. And last but not least, they don't have a plan B. Like they go all in, put all their savings here, came to this country to start this company. So they really want to make this a success. And as a founder, I really think it's such a life-changing experience, but it's also so intense that you have to go all in. You have to breathe your company and your idea. You cannot do it as an option. Some of the consultants say, I did 1 year, looked into which company to found, and I figured out the market for this is the biggest. Like, I'm allergic to this. I really want to see the passion, the hunger, and the why behind someone is founding a company. And that's why I also love investing into healthcare, but because oftentimes people have a personal story, like losing a loved one, whatsoever, having cancer in the history of the family, and then they really go all in with their passion. And I think immigrants are predestined for this.
Yeah, it really sounds like it's the perfect description of what you're actually looking for in a founder, in a hungry founder, in an ambitious founder who goes all in. So it feels like all the other traditional VCs are constantly missing that if you look at the numbers of struggles that founders have to access capital, especially in Germany. So what do you think is structurally maybe broken that German VCs source or evaluate founders differently so that migrant founders cannot access that?
I think we have a certain bias towards certain universities and certain looks. And I always call it the similarity bias. Everybody has a bias, like likes to invest in likes. Likes to spend time with people who are similar to them. I'd always say that owning and deploying capital means a lot of power, because ultimately you decide about who's even going to have a chance to be successful and who's not even getting off this start ramp, right? So that's why I also think before diversifying the founder base, you have to diversify those that hold the power and the capital, i.e. the investor base. And when I say diversification, obviously only 15%, around 15% of women, female GPs in Europe are women or female. That's of senior partners. That's not enough. And even less of them, I think around 6% are in IC, investment committee, where you ultimately make the decision. That is not good, because this also gives a similarity bias towards male founders. So you need more women investing also in women, or understanding the struggles that women might go through. The same with immigrant investors. Unfortunately, our VC industry is very white, male dominant. We have not enough women. I mean, there are a few like Zoe Fabian, Kati Wilhelm, Judith Dada, great friends of mine, but it's very limited and it's getting better. And at the same time, we have not many immigrants. And I think that is a challenge. And the third, maybe what we also don't have, is we don't have exoten, like people who did multiple things in the past, worked in an NGO, started their own company. So there is a strong bias towards a certain type that also then reflects, or is being reflected in the founders that everyone invests. And we all fish in the same pool. So I do think ultimately we need to diversify the investor base to ultimately diversify those that get the funding.
And now I followed a huge debate on LinkedIn. I think it was started by Alan Chang from Fuse Energy, which was very strong against like diversity, saying that this is BS and it hinders basically the growth of startups. There was many articles in Sifted. There are critics out there that might say diversity in VC is a nice to have, not a business driver. You are now a partner at the fund that manages over €1 billion. We have now just heard like why you think this is actually a missed opportunity. But like talking to these critics, what is your take? What would you say to these people?
I have to say, I'm a capitalist at heart, right? I have a big heart, obviously, but I'm a capitalist, right? I also just do things that make return. I'm working for a for-profit venture capital fund. And I do think, hey, when there's less competition, the more people like Alan Chang, and I told you before, I haven't heard about it, read about it. Funny enough, he or she seems to have a migrant background themselves. Sorry, I don't know that person that well, but I think it's amazing. Please continue saying things like this, so I have less competition and I can go fish in the very best pool of founders and invest in the next decade of unicorns, while you go back into fishing in the same pool that everybody does. Fun aside, I'm being sarcastic a bit now. Obviously, as you said, numbers clearly show there is a clear correlation between diverse backgrounds, be it gender or immigration background, and the success of a company, because of the traits that these people have, the hunger level, etc. And it's not a question of belief. It's more about a clear ROI. And I always say diversity is not a nice to have, but it's a must have that is clearly proven by numbers, data, and facts.
I want to turn to a topic which is obviously the elephant in the room for many of us now in the tech scene, which is AI. And to just set the scene, I think so many people talk about AI just as if it would be ChatGPT. When we now look at Germany, which is not like famous for its consumer tech, or Europe in general, we have a super large manufacturing base. It's a B2B economy. You have famous companies like Bosch, BMW, Siemens, a Mittelstand. And so, like, these companies sit on a lot of decades old proprietary operational data the American AI does not have access to. So, how do you look at that situation from a structural side? Where can a country like Germany or Europe in general really pull a structural edge with this dynamic?
Very good question. And I just recently saw an interview from December from the founder of NVIDIA. He described AI as a four structured layer. And he said it's about data centers, it's about chips, it's about LLMs, and the applied AI. And he then made the case why China versus US, who wins the race, who not. He didn't even dare or talk about Europe, and then I took this statement and I converted and translated it to EU. Basically, he said chip race, US is ahead, data centers, US or China, in terms of LLMs. China is moving up because of the open source and the quality increasing. And he said applied AI, we have to see. And I do think that indeed the race for foundational models is more or less, the ship has sailed. I do know that there are European companies like Aleph Alpha, Mistral, etc. And don't know them well enough to comment on it, as we are not invested, full disclosure. But I do think the ship has more or less sailed. The same with chip and data centers. But I think where we do have a strong opportunity is really in vertical AI. Because as you said, we are the world's third largest economy. Even though in terms of size and population, we are tiny. Like we have the US and China and then Germany, which shows how powerful beyond the mere number of population our industries, our old economy, or our economy is. And we are sitting on such precious data. And I just come back and I told Melanie and you, Christian, when we did the pre-discussion for this podcast, I was still in Baden at the BBUG, the Baden-Baden Unternehmen, which is also called Deutschland or Germany Inc., Deutschland AG, because basically all the now CEOs, supervisory board members of the large corporates have taken or participated in this program. And we discussed exactly this topic. And what I see is the sense of urgency around tech and AI is there. So we had people of Mercedes, BMW, Bosch, BASF, Kercher, Vorwerk, everyone was in that room, Allianz, etc. They all see the need and the urgency. What they miss is orientation and the how-to. And I do think this is where we as venture capitalists can play a tremendous role. Because I always say, when people ask me, I'm not a venture capital investor. I'm a bridge builder between different worlds, and I'm an advisor. I try to understand what is moving our German industry, what is moving the different representatives of these companies, what are their challenges, and how can we, with tech and AI, with our companies, build that bridge and find a solution. And I think this is where our strength lies, in companies that are going deep into certain verticals, be it healthcare, be it manufacturing, be it automotive, going into the workflows, automating workflows, and then working with very proprietary data that large LLMs simply don't have access to. A, they don't bother. They will never build sales teams and go in. B, compliance is a huge issue. We have the EU AI Act, and most of the very regulated German industries are saying, we will never give an American LLM access to our data. And C, it's this cultural thing, this translation of challenges thing, which I think personally, you can have as many people from OpenAI in Germany as you want. It stays an American company. And there, as a German company and team, understanding the challenges as an advisor can really help. So I'm personally very excited of making Germany great again.
And if we now look at really, let's say, a decision maker on the ground in one of these hundreds and thousands of companies we have in Germany, and I think also in larger parts of Europe, really
Yeah.
Mittelstand, you're sitting on an on-prem SAP system, maybe your migration to the cloud is planned or whatever. What can I, as a decision maker, do now? Should I go to Mistral? Should I go to NVIDIA? Should I lobby politics for what? What can I do?
I think SAP was a big topic. So that is a huge topic. I don't want to sound too negative, because it's the only tech company we have in the German DAX, the most valuable. So I really think SAP is our success story, but it's also, I think, 50 years old. I don't know. It's not new tech, right? But SAP data is an issue. So most of the companies that they are so locked into this data that most of the AI companies they're operating with cannot get access or translate. So I think if I was a founder, the first thing I was looking to as a market would be how to make this SAP data usable, translatable for AI applications. That would be a no-brainer AI idea as an idea. I think technically, if you don't want to become a service company, which we VCs don't like, right? Not repeatable, not scalable, blah, blah, blah. It's difficult, but I think that's where opportunity lies. And most of these companies basically need to make their organizations first AI ready. On the very first or second day, we had Michael Bregel, who's heading BCG Europe-wide. And I'm former McKinsey, but I think in that case, he made a really good presentation on anything around what big corporates on the German Mittelstand have to do, and they have to make their organizations AI ready. This includes the SAP data, this includes processes, and this includes also identifying which are the areas where you can start applying AI. Ideally, you don't start directly with the mission critical space, but you start more with an experiment phase to see, does that work in a small space? And if that works, you can scale it further. I most recently talked to the CEO of Metro, who hired me at McKinsey 20 years ago. And he explained how they do it. So basically, what they did is they went through all their individual processes and then defined which are already AI ready, what's the impact and what's the potential, and then prioritize according to that, almost like a roadmap, which ones to start with, and then how to roll it out further. And I think this is every organization needs to do it to then be applied to digest and work with the right AI companies. So before partnering, you need to understand, what are my challenges, which part is ready for AI, and how can I partner with the right person or company.
Do you have examples from also the really then venture or startup scene of startups really currently being able to penetrate this kind of ground?
So if I look into the healthcare space, which is like my home turf and home
Mhm.
market, what is happening within hospitals? So we have in Germany or in Europe at large, a lot of challenges. One of the challenges is the data is very fragmented. A large
Mhm.
part of the patient data and anything around hospitals is offline and it's not structured, which leads to the fact that doctors would need 1.5 to 2 hours to have a full picture of a patient before seeing this person. And now AI can bring efficiency in by structuring all the offline and online data in a very quick time into a format that gives doctors 1 minute to have a full overview of the risk profile, of the history, of anything that makes sense. This is literally saving lives. And that's the power of AI. And ultimately, it's also very attractive for hospitals because by having more transparency around patients and being able to do more tests, etc., they can also charge more towards insurances and become more profitable by treating the high value and the right patients. So I think in the healthcare space, there's a lot of potential. Unfortunately, it's a mindset topic, and we don't see it in Europe at large yet that there's the willingness to move forward. And this is, I think, the biggest challenge in Germany at large, the mindset change. From my 3 weeks
Mhm.
at Baden-Baden, I can definitely say there is a sense of urgency, but I don't think it has scaled at large, especially if you look more into the German Mittelstand and not into the DAX companies.
And let's continue on exactly that point because in the prep talk, we briefly mentioned Cognigy, which is a company back in the days founded in Düsseldorf. DN Capital backed that with 6 million euros in 2019. 3 founders. They then actually ended up building enterprise AI for customer service, had huge clients from the European corporate world, a $955 million exit. Now, one of the largest acquisitions in AI in Europe, not consumer tech, but really B2B AI from Germany. What do you think we can, as an ecosystem, as individual decision makers, learn from that story?
I think multiple things. I think the first thing is very much about the nature of Germany, which makes it very unique, also different to France or to UK, for example. Like we as Germans, we don't have one center. Like we don't have London or Paris. We have Berlin, we have Munich, we have Stuttgart, we have the North Rhine-Westphalia area, we have the Schwarzwald with big hidden champions or not so hidden champions and large economies sitting very decentrally. So I do think we as investors have to make sure that we are also have an eye beyond Berlin and Munich into the different hubs. That's the first, because Cognigy was a Düsseldorf-based company, which makes me very proud because I'm from Cologne, so it's like almost like my hometown. I think secondly, which it shows is just what we discussed, that we really have a chance in vertical AI. That because that's what Cognigy did. They did call center agents. So they went deep into the call center processes and data of clients like Allianz, Lufthansa, etc., and basically automated and made more efficient through AI agents the entire processes. So they had this lock-in effect in the vertical applied AI space. And interestingly, the acquisition was done by a US listed AI company called NICE, which is also quite interesting. I think it's also positive. People were saying, like, why isn't the exit, hasn't it been done within Germany, etc. But that's a separate topic. But it shows that American companies, AI companies, are fishing in Germany for vertical AI because that's where our strength is, which is a great, I think, testament and signal. And the third, I think, is the other learning is Cognigy wasn't always going very steep, right? It had its ups and downs, and it didn't start with AI call center agents. And that's also a tip from me to many founders. I always say choosing your investor is almost like choosing your partner. You have to upfront ask the right and especially tough questions, and you have to see who is willing to go the extra mile with you, the ups and downs, because these things, Cognigy didn't exit within 5 to 6 years, which is great, but let's face reality, most of the cases, it takes up to 10 years and it's not always rosy. So really make sure you decide who to work with. For us, it was a very lucrative deal. We did 22x on our initial ticket, and makes us very proud to see what Philip and his co-founding team built out of Düsseldorf.
And now I'd really like to connect this topic also with our initial topic, because on the one hand, you have massive AI talent here in Europe, like also in Germany. And like there was a number that really struck me that nearly 45% of Germany's AI workforce holds foreign undergraduate degrees. So basically, you could say the people building Germany's AI future are disproportionately people with immigration background. But at the same time, these people face structural barriers. And so my question is, do you already see that this is opening up and that maybe AI is actually the driver, that we actually get into a world where just the brightest minds make it and not just like the ones like the Max Müllers because of their name and how they look like? How do you perceive that?
I do think that AI, I know there's a lot of criticism and negativity around AI destroying jobs and biases, etc. But I think AI is also a great tool to democratize access and to give fair access. Because what we see as investors, and it's a bit of a challenge as well, that you can today, you don't need much capital to build a company. So the old Series A rounds are the new seed rounds because companies are scaling much faster from 0 to 1 million ARR. Beforehand, this would take 2-3 years. You would need to hire an entire team. You would need to have initial capital. It would be much harder. And today with AI, with the agents, LLMs, and all the possibilities, you can scale to 1 million within 1 to 1.5 years, which makes it hard for us because companies, the seed rounds are much bigger and valuations much higher. But it's also democratizes for, which we talked about before, immigrant founders or founders from underprivileged backgrounds of female founders who, because of certain bias or not having the right vitamin B network, would not have enough capital to scale the company. So I think AI is really democratizing that, which I think is great because now not the most visible or obvious founders are being backed, but the best founders who are making the best about what is equally there for everyone because AI is reachable for everyone. It doesn't select
Just one
by who
thing,
has more money.
and I think also just coming back to an earlier point in our discussion, it also, and I mean, I don't want to bash the school system here, but it does make you more independent of the school system
Yeah,
because AI can be your teacher. So if you
exactly.
decide to learn something about a topic, there is no one holding you back. And I think there is fewer and fewer instances where you need an institution which you need to pay money or you need to know someone or you need to be successful in the given system, which can be super hard to acquire a skill.
100%. Just imagine our school system in Germany. Like kids at the age of 10, they are being with 3-4 years in school, being categorized into different school systems and like having, that's insane. And this can change an entire future. I remember when I was at gymnasium, I went to Hauptschule. Basically, all my friends were immigrants and they all were at Hauptschule. And then you would go in there was no teaching. And it's not to blame anyone, but if you just put all children into one group and basically tell them, okay, you are the stupid or not the so well, we need more support, or you are the wild ones, there's no structure. I truly believe that you can mix things and that there is no stupid child. There are just children who maybe don't have the same access, who don't have the same attention, or maybe don't have the same support, and that have different levels of learning. But by mixing these children up and giving them objectives and motivating them to learn, away from this frontal learning to more interactive learning with digital skill set, etc., is so important. And I really think we as a country have to get better here. Like, we have to have AI on the schedule, or tech and AI. We have to have financial literacy, and we do have to have anything around entrepreneurship, because otherwise we will all end up being employed and not diverse enough. So I really think that's important. And that's why also we started with our Two Hearts at School program, where we are going to schools, or our mentors are going back to their own schools around 10th or 11th grade and are telling about their journey. So are telling about why they ended up founding a company, how they got there, how they went through against all odds, etc., to inspire these young people to show, hey, if I made it, you can also make it.
And is there a specific, because you have created this Two Hearts network of 3,000 people, 150 nationalities, as we read it up. Have you also seen a story that you could share that maybe even ended up in your DN pipeline, so that people can see what it actually can change if you have the right network?
The crazy thing is, I meet two hearties, as I like to call them, everywhere. So there's not a single month where I don't have a random Zoom call with a founder who's then saying, hey, I'm actually Two Hearts member. And it just opens my heart. I'm like, I would love to hug them then, because Two Hearts, it's a bit like a family. Judith was one of our founding members. So whenever you see each other, we just had at Start Summit, we had a reunion, you're instantly connected, because it's beyond this social status, etc. It's really, we share same challenges, we have the same ambitions, and we are part of this community. It's so beautiful. So I regularly meet Two Hearties. And the funniest thing that happened to me was, so I have a talent for breaking my iPhones. This one is damaged as well. These are stickers for my children, but like, I do that every year. That's why I think I'm the best paying Apple client, like doing the insurance and everything. So this happened again end of last year. I was very annoyed in the afternoon, went to an Apple store. I was really annoyed. And then the guy came, the random guy who was like doing the technical stuff. He's like, hi, Gülsah. It's so great to meet you. I'm a Two Hearts member. How can I help you personally? I was like, wow, this is insane. On a random afternoon in Berlin, I'm going to an Apple store, really annoyed because I again broke my phone. And a guy just makes my day by saying he's a Two Hearty. And that was just very beautiful.
And now, if we also look into the future, and I mean, you co-authored the book Zukunft im Widerspruch, the title translates to Future in Contradiction. What do you see like going forward, be it for Germany, but also for our continent, like connecting this diverse talent, AI, and just the state where we are in this world at the moment?
I do think that we are currently in a world, be it in economy and society, and we see it with the geopolitical tensions, which is very black or white. I feel like we don't have many shades in between, and that's a big challenge. So I see it in our own country, in Germany, that the tone is getting more harsh. I think we see increased polarization, where it's about black or white, either you're with us or against us. And I think in this world, we need to be able to accept and live with contradictory points. So when we look to the AfD, the right-wing racist party in Germany, according to my opinion, I stopped blaming them for that. I stopped people electing them blaming, because I don't want to believe that every third or fourth person in Germany is a racist. I don't believe that. I just want to understand. I want to hear their views and see what are the fears. How did we get there? And the same, the example you gave with Alan Chung on diversity, right? I don't want to blame anyone. I want to understand where they're coming from and start a dialogue, because I think in this very heated environment and tension, we can only create dialogue by creating bridges and talking to each other. We don't need more, sorry to say, more autocratic, high ego leaders, but we need more women who listen, who ask questions, and try to build bridges.
And Gülsah, you once said, people told me not to show emotions, not to laugh too much, not to be too open, not to wear too much jewelry, not to talk about my kids or my health. Who made these rules? So, what's your take on that now? Have you stopped following those rules? Are you actively going against them? How do you deal with this?
For everyone who cannot see me, I'm currently wearing a sweater with a big heart and shiny stones around. No, fun aside. I personally think that I understand where people are. Again, I understand where people who said these things are coming from. Like my boss at McKinsey, when she said, please don't leave your hair open, I get it. Because the surrounding was, we were in a large technology company, very old school. Everybody was wearing black suits. I get it. So I would never stand on a stage and tell people to just wear and do whatever they want. There is a certain etiquette for each and every room. And I think, by the way, this is a very dangerous advice because I think there is an etiquette for every room. Just as I don't go with a white dress to a cemetery, or that I don't wear white in a wedding, there are also certain rules in certain organizations. But I do think that everyone has to have the right to have their personality and wear things or do things that are very much special to them. And this is less about the looks and it's more about personality. A friend of mine, Laura Bornmann, she just wrote a book around leadership and new leadership. And she says that being kind, listening, and empathetic is actually one of the most important skill sets in our time. And I do think I don't care what people wear. And I do agree sometimes you probably don't wear your heart turtle sweater and you wear a suit, but it's less about the looks. It's more about your personality, your values, and who you end up being. And if you like to laugh, if you're a kind person, you should please keep that and let not yourself change. You can obviously adapt, but always stay true to yourself because I do think in this world we need more empathetic, kind leaders who also don't take themselves too seriously and laugh and smile from time to time.
And if you now think about a person that is now just saying, this is exactly what I feel, I couldn't agree more, but I'm surrounded by people who see that differently, who want to tell me that I need to adapt in order to succeed. What do you tell them? Because it's also very exhausting to put so much energy into a system and kind of
Exactly.
adapting, but still staying true to yourself. So what is it that helped you maybe like really pushing through it?
I think it really depends. Sometimes people say, I wrote a part of a book it's called Machtbereiche or Machtgebiete. It's more about women. And
Mhm.
one of the quotes there is, and a lot of very well known female leaders were participating. And one of the quotes was, change the system, not the women. I agree,
Mhm.
but a big but. You cannot change every system you are in. And I always say, if you are a bird and you're in water, you will never be able to excel and fly. Like you will never be a great fish, right? Because you're a bird.
Mhm.
And I do always say to people, try to strengthen your strengths. Don't try to make the 0.1% of your weaknesses better. So focus on your strengths and try to be environments where your strengths are being appreciated. Don't be stuck too long because it will make you unhealthy. It will give you cancer and you will never be as good as the people who like that environment. So you have the power to change your surrounding. And if you want to change the system, you can do that if you have reached a certain level and then come together with a large group as we did with Two Hearts.
Yeah.
Like we were named by Manager Magazine a few years ago, one of Germany's most influential networks, which is very paradox, right? Underprivileged, unseen people come together and the most prestigious magazine calls us influential network. But this shows if you come together as a group, you can start changing the system, but it takes time and never try it individually. As an individual, look into your own environment and make sure you're the bird in the air that can fly high.
Yeah. Oh, I love this advice.
Love it. So, Gülsah, you have a very busy life and a lot of things on your plate. One of our themes on the show is obviously how you scale a business while staying sane. What are your guardrails to keep a harmony between work and life in the long run?
I always say foot on the ground and eyes on the stars. So never forget where you come from and your foundation. So I do think that taking time for yourself is super important. I most recently during Women's Day, I did a post around this oxygen mask example. When I was a child, I never understood why flight attendants would say, in a case of emergency, please first take the oxygen mask to yourself and then to elderly, sick people and children. I was like, huh? you have to be an asshole to do that. Obviously, first. And then over time, I understood I can only be 100% there for my community, for my firms, for my company, for my kids, for my family, for my friends, if I invest in myself and I am 100% myself. So taking this oxygen mask, I first make sure that I'm doing good. For me, very practically, this means I do sports every morning, just 10 minutes. Yeah. And meditation, 5 minutes. My kids are jumping around me, anything, but that's my time. I need these 15 minutes. I spend quality time with my family, and I make sure that I never forget where I come from. It doesn't matter how successful I am, how much money I have, how many prizes I get. I always know how it all started with my grandparents who came here with nothing and worked their asses off in a production site. And I will never forget that.
Thank you so much for sharing. This is so powerful, and I think many people out there can actually relate to that. So we will end normally the show with a rapid fire question. So we ask a very short question and you can answer as short as possible. So first one, enterprise AI in Germany, hype or real this time?
Real, and the biggest competitive opportunity and advantage we have in this life.
The one thing Germany must fix in the next 3 years to keep its AI talent.
Germany first, focus on the best talent, and stay optimistic around what we have. The glass is half full.
Your mother's intervention at your school, what would have happened without it?
Different Gülsah, but same mindset and same ambition.
Love it.
The career advice you would give to a shy girl with long dark hair in Düren somewhere today.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Awesome. So if people now wonder, for the founders out there, for the future Gülsahs out there who want to learn more about your work at DN Capital, connect with Two Hearts, or just get in touch somehow, what is the best way for them to do that?
On Two Hearts, you should definitely apply through our type form. It takes 5 minutes, and it's basically about your personal journey and what makes you want to join our community, because we want to have talent and people who have the give first mentality, because that's what our community is about. And in terms of DN, just reach out via LinkedIn or via my email and send me a short blurb. And ideally, if you have a deck, send it to me and then let's talk.
Awesome. We will put all the links in our newsletter where we will share more insights about this topic that we were just discussing. Thank you very much, Gülsah. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. And I know you're super busy, so we appreciate it even more. Thank you, and talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Melanie and Christian. I really enjoyed it, and it was maybe one of the most genuine and nice conversations I had in a long time. Thank you.
And this was another episode of our Follow the Gradient podcast.
And now we would love to hear from you. How did you like it? What should we improve? Do you have any suggestions, ideas, or dream podcast guests? Please let us know.
Thank you and see you again next week.